Hello, everybody. Welcome again to our seminar series 2020. First, we would like to acknowledge the traditional owners of the land and waters on which we work and live here in the center of Townsville, the Bindal and Woolgarugaba people, and honor their elders, past, present, and emerging.
Thank you, Natalia. It's a huge pleasure for me to introduce Erika. I met Erika many years ago in Townsville when she moved up from Sydney Uni to start a PhD here at James Cook. She had been doing some work on proteins down in Sydney with Byrne, but I eventually convinced her that these were way too difficult and not much fun. So instead, she did some wonderful work using coral larvae to explore geographical variation in thermal tolerance of corals. This also meant we got to visit some magical places along the East Coast, including one very memorable trip to Lord Howe Island. So I hope that Erika agrees that this was a lot more fun than running gels in the lab. Her career since then, since a PhD, has shown that a PhD in marine ecology doesn't necessarily mean you have to end up in academia. And so since leaving James Cook, she's forged a career in science communication, and in particular, she's been using virtual reality to raise awareness of the current reef crisis by allowing anyone to experience the wonders of the reef without leaving home. So Erika, over to you.
Wow, thank you so much, Andrew. And I do have to say it was a lot of fun doing that PhD with you, and getting to go to all of those amazing places and field work with you is far preferable to hanging out in the lab. So I am starting with this interactive activity. Something I've been doing a lot the last few months is virtual facilitation. Teaching at different universities and working with clients, and I try to make it as interactive as possible. So this presentation is going to be bookended by interactive activities. Up front, I just wanted to share this really nice tool called Annotate. So if you move your mouse to the top of the screen, you should see a toolbar, and it includes an annotate feature. So I have it down here, and then you can select text. You can do a special stamp like a check mark if you agree with something someone else is saying. But I'll give you another minute or so to try it out. It's really fun to play with, and a nice a nice tool for interaction and sharing in addition to the chat. And someone is saying, go the Blues. I wonder who that might be. All right. So now I can clear the screen. Oh, and we have a heart. So we have a smiley face. Someone agreed with Palau. Awesome. Thanks, everybody. Okay, so I'm gonna move on. I'm going to clear these beautiful drawings and writings and just head on. So the talk I'll be giving is called Advancing Ocean Literacy with Emerging Technology. And as Andrew explained, after my PhD with him, which was also supervised by Sally Keith and Maria Byrne, who's down in Sydney, I came back to California where I grew up and started working more in science communication. I had already come home by the time I graduated. Oh, and we got an anywhere in the Galapagos, very nice. And I wasn't able to go back to Townsville for a graduation ceremony, so I ended up having this photo shoot with my dog, and that was my graduation. Didn't quite get the hat right. And I had a wonderful experience, doing my field work for my PhD and finishing it up. And I also had a few creative outlets that had to do with science communication especially, or just a bit of fun. So here's one of the 2 t-shirts I designed during my time at the center. The other one said hard coral porn because I was working in larval ecology with Andrew. And when I got back to San Francisco, I made a pretty cool network here, and with some friends and colleagues, I've co-founded a nonprofit called the Hydras. And our mission is very general. We want to create what we like to call open access oceans. so that all people may explore, understand, and engage with marine environments that are severely threatened by both anthropogenic climate change and more direct human impacts. And everything that we do for this central mission is really just a tool. Andrew mentioned I'm using virtual reality, and virtual reality is a really interesting tool to pursue and investigate and use, but it's not the central focus of what we're doing. And if the tool doesn't work, we'll find another thing that does. And when I talk about ocean literacy, here's what I mean. It's really championed by UNESCO and the Intergovernmental Oceanographic Commission, as well as the National Marine Educators Association, at least in the US. And overall, ocean literacy is defined as the understanding of the ocean's influence on you and your influence on the ocean. And so an ocean literate person is defined as someone who understands big concepts about the ocean, like how it supports life on Earth and human communities and things. So there's a lot of science literacy in there as well. And an ocean literate person also can communicate about the ocean in meaningful ways and make informed decisions. And a lot of this research has included ways to measure ocean literacy. Up until recently, there wasn't any standardized way, but Geraldine Faville and her team have created an international ocean literacy survey that has been translated into, I think, 13 or 15 languages. And she's one of my collaborators at Stanford, luckily enough. So when I say emerging technology, it's essentially technology that is new, might be unproven, but it's certainly ambiguous. And things that are growing fast, being adopted widely. It still might be the case where we don't know what the implications will be, but is definitely being highlighted more and more. Examples from last year's survey from this one resource, Tech Republic, is artificial intelligence and machine learning, blockchain or distributed ledger technologies. And also on this list is 3D printing and virtual reality and augmented reality. And I'm going to talk a little bit about virtual and augmented reality. So that's known as AR/VR, or because there's also something called mixed reality, a shorthand is also calling it XR. And I just want to say that based on where I am now in San Francisco and having the resources of Silicon Valley in terms of knowledge and funding has been really useful to pursue a lot of these emerging technologies and harnessing them for ocean education and science literacy. So the thing that the Hydrous became known for at the beginning was 3D coral modeling. And so my co-founder Sly Lee had collected all of these 3D models of corals around the world using underwater photogrammetry. So while diving, he would take multiple photographs around a colony or sometimes a 10 meter by 10 meter area of reef, and then stitch that together using sometimes a high-powered computer and some software from Autodesk, who is one of our early supporters. And a lot of these models are available open access online on our Sketchfab account. And what's been great is in the few years we've been making them open access, they've been downloaded and viewed tens of thousands of times. And we've gotten great feedback from artists, scientists. There are a lot of students that are using them in different mathematical models or fluid dynamic models, as well as educators and artists. People have been using them for art exhibitions and museum exhibits. And we've also sometimes 3D print them. I have some models, big and small, that before the global pandemic, I used to bring into classrooms and lots of events. And what's so fun about these little corals is that we also can paint them with thermochromic paint. So if we put them into warm water, they turn white to visualize bleaching. And so funded by National Geographic, we've actually created ocean education kits that incorporates these 3D coral models that turn white in warm water, that's supplemented by science curriculum and these workbooks targeted at middle school students. And it's all very much evidence-based, hands-on science learning, where we try to focus on curiosity-driven and inquiry-based experimentation. A lot of the journal is about just reflecting and asking questions, because I think that's kind of at the heart of what science is, and we want a generation of people that think critically and understand what good evidence looks like. And then there's also the feature of having a virtual dive along with it, which I'll tell you more about in a little bit. Something we just wrapped up last month is a partnership with the Smithsonian Digitization Program Office in Washington, D.C. And this has been a partnership that's been ongoing for a couple of years, where we help select different coral specimens from the National Museum of Natural History with the help of Andrea Quattrini and other curators, so that these 3D models are available open access. And an example of that is this Seriatopora hystrix, which was collected initially by James Dana during the US exploring expedition in 1840 or so. And what's crazy is that specimens like this, which I believe this one's a syntype, it's been on a shelf or in a drawer for over 150 years. And about 1 or 2% of all of the Smithsonian's collection is ever on display. And so this way, the models are downloadable, they're open access at multiple resolutions, and they're accompanied by the traditional photographs. So we have about 100 specimens that are now available open access, which has been really wonderful. Plus, we've accompanied it with some educational content and latest information on taxonomy, as well as sort of storytelling. So we've divided it into different learning modules with a bit of a curriculum. In addition, there's a really cool AR feature. So augmented reality is where you take some kind of image or model and put it in your reality. So if you access this website on the bottom left on your device, a tablet or a smartphone, you can select any of these specimens and place them in the real world and even walk around them and zoom in on them. And it's really fun. People get pretty creative with it. This is just me down at the beach. So with regards to emerging tech, not only have we been interested in 3D modeling and photogrammetry, we also have been really interested in 360-degree photospheres. So for those of you that are familiar with Chasing Coral and the Catlin CV survey, we basically used their similar methods where we take multiple photos facing out and stitch them together. This particular image was collected in the Maldives in 2016 when I was doing some work there. And it happened after a major bleaching event, so I mean, all those table corals are dead. And what's interesting is that on Google Street View, this particular image has been viewed, I think, millions of times, which is super interesting. And so for any of you that were at ICRS in 2016, I was carrying around this Google Cardboard. So it's basically a cardboard viewer that you put your phone in. And we put some fun masks on it to just play with the idea that it's like diving. And I found that, here, I'll skip to the next slide. And I found that when I had this device and showed it to people who might not have been scientists or had never been diving, the questions and the curiosity and the excitement was beyond anything I'd ever seen before after I'd been talking about coral reefs for a long time, even showing good pictures, but there was something really fun. It could be the novelty effect of a new technology that seemed to be very engaging. So I remember thinking, there's something to this. And again, I carried it around a lot, and one of the highlights was showing those 360 photospheres from the Maldives to President Mohammed Nasheed of the Maldives, who was I met him at the Skull World Forum in the UK, where he was currently in political exile. So it was a really interesting use of that immersive environment and a pretty exciting interaction. So, of course, we have the phone and the cardboard, but I really wanted to see what you could do with it at a really high level. So I built a team, I raised a bunch of funds, and we found this incredible camera called the Virtual 2. And it's basically 13 black magic cameras mounted in multiple directions. And it shot at 4K at 60 frames per second. It was stereoscopic, meaning that the cameras were mounted about eye distance apart from each other, so that when you viewed it in VR, in a headset, one eye was slightly different than what the other eye would see. And so it created a 3D effect, which makes a huge difference in an immersive virtual environment in terms of the feeling of presence. And the feelings of presence and of agency are really interesting sort of psychological effects of immersive virtual environments that I can talk about later with the research I'm doing. But this was quite an amazing production in Palau. The Virtual 2 camera collected about 50 gigs per minute and took about, I don't know, 10 hours to offload footage every day. But we were lucky to get some really fabulous content. We were there when the Moorish idols were aggregating and the red snappers were spawning. So these are the red snappers behind me. And we also did some filming in San Francisco at the California Academy of Sciences, where I'm a volunteer show diver there. And they were very generous to give us access to the event, or give us access to the space. And so the film is sort of structured like a dive profile, where you immerse yourself in the beginning, you explore, and then you come back to the original location. And some of the narrators of the VR experience were scientists at the Cal Academy, like Pim Baumgartz and Terry Gosliner. We also interviewed some young ocean advocates that are part of a youth ocean group that I'm a science advisor for, including some really amazing kids from Palau. And another one of the narrators is Ruth Gates, who we dedicated the film to. And these flat clips don't really do it justice, but we do show what it's like for scientists to collect data on the reef. We do some CGI overlays. We also got a lot of great manta shots. And we ended up doing a whole new experience about mantas for National Geographic with all of this amazing footage we had. And because we were able to use CGI, so computer generated imagery, we also recreated what it was like to be on a reef during a spawning event. So imagine just being in a VR headset and looking around you and seeing all of these pink orbs floating up. So it's been pretty well received. We've shown it at a number of film festivals and bring it into classrooms as part of the curriculum we've been designing, and has won some awards, been shown at a number of different places. And it's available on a number of virtual reality platforms, including the Oculus Store, Viveport Video, Samsung VR. And it has had some great reviews, and some people have called it the best underwater VR out there. Plus, I've had the amazing opportunity to share it at National Geographic. So as an explorer, I have a pretty wonderful platform there. And what you can't tell from this picture that you will be able to from this is that everybody in this 400-person theater is wearing a VR headset. So what I'm doing is I'm live narrating a virtual dive while everyone goes diving with me. And it was such a cool experience, and the feedback was amazing. And one of my favorite things to do is talk to people after they come out of the headset and either want to tell me their story about the ocean or ask what they can do to be more mindful of ocean issues. And we did a couple of sold out shows at National Geographic headquarters in DC. And we also did some student matinees, and tested out a classroom expedition kit where we took a bunch of VR headsets that we synced together. I worked with some amazing people there that organized this, and we tested it out in some local schools. Plus, Nat Geo put it on their YouTube channel. So YouTube has a 360 capability. And so yesterday it was at about 255,000 views. Today it's closer to 260. So it seems to be getting a lot of attention and traction, which is great. It's a 9-minute experience. And yes, people can view it on just their normal browser, but if you put it on your phone and move your phone around, you can get that 360 effect, or put it in a cardboard viewer. And at the end of this talk, I'll share a way how you all, if you have a phone or a tablet available with the YouTube app installed, and a way of reading QR codes, either with a camera or a QR viewer, I can take you on a little virtual dive. And it's been really amazing since we just posted this on the YouTube channel in July, and it already has 250,000 views. And we've also gotten a lot of really great traction on it during the global pandemic, because a lot of the organizations I work with are looking for that kind of content and interactive media. So we've gotten some pretty nice attention for the work, including a couple of interesting headlines from Forbes. Plus, we were able to present at the Cannes Film Festival with my friend Danny Washington, who's a marine scientist, ocean advocate, and TV host. And she and I are working on a podcast together called 21st Century Mermaids about women in the ocean. And so we were able to lead a virtual dive with the Cannes audience. So in general, the impact for this one film has been pretty wonderful. We estimate that we've had about 350,000 virtual dives since we launched it last year. We've had some pretty interesting viewers. Tommy Remengesau, who's the president of Palau. We led virtual dives at the United Nations. Sylvia Earle saw it. Richard Branson saw it. There's a chance Snoop Dogg saw it, but we're not totally sure. I was presenting at this event that also had Bill Nye and Snoop Dogg there, so there's a chance they stopped by our booth, but who knows. And we were able to raise a bit of funds directly from this film to fund our research and our programs. But when I talk about impact, I'm also really interested about what these experiences actually do. Because we can talk about views, we can talk about the number of people that go on virtual dives, but does it help with science literacy or ocean literacy or behavior change? And something that we've been doing throughout a lot of this is talking to users and the people that experience this. These are just some examples of some feedback from middle school students, and they say that it feels really real, and they have questions about whether coral are living animals or plants, or what it's like to look inside the rays' mouths. And that's another thing. When I give a presentation to kids, for instance, that doesn't have a VR element, a lot of the questions I get are about me. So things like, oh, how long have you been diving? What's your favorite fish? How did you become a marine biologist, sort of thing. But when kids come out of VR, their questions are more like, I could see inside the rays' mouths. Where are their internal organs? Or I wonder if coral is a plant or an animal. And so what's so cool there is that there's that translation, where rather than focusing on me, it's focusing on what they saw, and they become the scientists. And I think that's really exciting, and that there's really something to that. And so before we show kids the VR experience, we generally just ask them some questions about what they think about the ocean. And I won't show you all of the responses, but in general, kids in California, middle school students, think the ocean is very deep, it's very dark, it's really scary, and it's full of tons of sharks that will eat you. And one kid even drew a picture of himself punching a shark in the face, which is what he wants to do. However, we asked similar questions after going into VR, and not only did we see a lot of their thoughts were focused more on questions about what they saw, but they also say things like, I feel like the ocean is the most beautiful thing on earth. It is full of life. It's incredible. I want to learn more and face my fears and go for a dive. And I just think that's really, really exciting. And so all of this intuition that I've been building over the past couple years about what VR can do is actually founded a lot in early research into VR. So I'm very lucky to be collaborating with the Virtual Human Interaction Lab at Stanford University, run by Jeremy Bailenson. I'm co-PI with him on a grant from the National Science Foundation, where we're investigating the effects of ocean VR on things like ocean literacy and empathy and self-efficacy. I don't know if you can hear that, but I think there's a boat doing something in the harbor right now. So our partners there are Virtual Human Interaction Lab, HTC, which is a VR company, as well as Horizon Productions in North Carolina. And with this grant, we're also developing a new immersive experience. So while Immerse, the film that was posted on Nat Geo's YouTube channel, is interactive in the way that you can move your head and feel immersed, this new experience will actually give learners the ability to select things, so use a hand controller. One of the fun things that one of the fun modules, we have about 5 learning modules, and one of them is about tagging manta rays and learning that the markings on their belly are unique for each individual. And so looking at a database for mantas in that region and seeing if you can match it up. We also have a game where you zoom out from the polyp level to the earth level and visualize sea surface temperatures in different regions and try to identify where coral bleaching might occur. So that agency and that interaction is really sort of the magic sauce for when it comes to what VR can do. Again, the research coming out of the VR lab that I hadn't been involved in really is finding that when compared to traditional 2D methods, so if they were watching a video or looking at a worksheet, they are able to generate more knowledge and interaction and even empathy. There are ways to measure empathy as I'm learning. So during my time at Stanford, I was also an ocean design fellow with the Stanford Institute of Design, known as the D.school, and the Stanford Center for Ocean Solutions. And me and my fellows, we have Leslie Ann Noel, who's a designer from Trinidad, and Kevin Chand, who is a lawyer from Fiji, who prior to that fellowship was negotiating high seas treaties at the UN. And the 3 of us worked together to sort of combine design. And at the D.school, when we say design, it's not necessarily graphic or artistic. It's about solving problems in a very human-centered way. And so what we did is we really asked that question: how might we combine ocean science and policy with human-centered solutions? And we've been teaching the class for 2 years now and hope to continue it. And it's been really interesting to see what the outcomes are, but just in the interest of time, I won't go too deeply into human-centered design and ocean issues. So I'd love to spend a lot of good time on questions and take you into the next interactive events. But I just want to acknowledge all of the amazing partners I've had along the way, and feeling like trying new things when it comes to translating scientific discovery into public understanding with regards to ocean science and conservation. So I've been very lucky to have the partners that I do. And before we go into question, what I would love you to try, so if you take out your phone, I'm going to take you on a little virtual dive. What I'd like you to do, so as I mentioned before, mantas, of course, have unique markings for each individual, like a fingerprint or a QR code. So this is sort of a little play on that. And if you have an iPhone, it should work with just your camera. Otherwise, you might need a QR reader. But and I also hope you have the YouTube app installed on your phone. But if you hold up your phone to select the QR code, it should link you directly to the YouTube app, where you can watch it on your phone by moving it around. You can drag with your finger to get the 360 effect, Or if you happen to have a cardboard viewer, you can select the cardboard icon, turn your phone sideways, and insert it into the viewer for a more immersive experience.